Today, I'm going to discuss professional practice under pre-feasibility study. So, what is pre-feasibility study? Under Standard of Professional Practice, Document 201, pre-feasibility studies. These preliminary studies involve the procurement, analysis, and use of secondary information gathered for the project to aid the client in early decision making. They represent the architect's initial assessment of the project's soundness, allowing the client to promptly explore available or readily identifiable directions or options, research or process. Validated secondary data are generally used for such studies. Example, electronic, print, etc. Let us go over the different definition of terms. Depreciation is the decrease in the value of physical property with the passage of time. Second, value. It is the present worth of all future profits that are to be received through ownership of a particular property. Consulting architect is an architect who specializes in that particular field of practice. Market value is the amount which a willing buyer will pay to a willing seller for the property which or where each has equal advantage and is under no compulsory or compulsion to buy or sell. Book value, it is sometimes called as the depreciated value. It is the worth of a property as shown on the accounting records of an enterprise. Salvage value or resale value, it is the price that can be obtained from the sale of the property after it has been used. It is also abbreviated as CL. Interest is the amount of money paid for the use of borrowed capital or the income produced by money which has been loaned. Number 8, scrap value is the amount the property would sell or dispose of as a junk or scrap. So sometimes scrap value is known as junk value. Fair value is the value which is usually determined by a disinterested third party in order to establish a price that is fair to both seller and buyer. Purpose of the depreciation. Number 1 is to provide for the recovery of capital. This has been invested in physical property. Second is to enable the cost of depreciation to be charged to the cost of producing products or services that results from the use of the property. Types of depreciation. One is the normal depreciation. This has something to do with the physical and functional depreciation. Second is depreciation due to changes in price levels. Third is depletion. So let us tackle some important topic here under depreciation. One is the physical depreciation. It is due to the lessening of the physical ability of a property to reduce results. Its common causes are wear and deterioration. Second, functional depreciation is due to the lessening in the demand for the function which the property was designed to render. Its common cause are inadequacy, changes in styles, population center shift, saturation of market, or more efficient machines are produced. Depreciation due to changes in price levels is almost impossible to predict and therefore is not considered in economy studies. Depletion refers to the decrease in the value of a property due to the gradual extraction of its contents. Physical and economic life. Physical life of a property is the length of time during which it is capable of performing the function for which it was designed and created or manufactured. Economic life is the length of time during which the property may be operated at a profit. So requirements of a depreciation method, it should be simple. Second, it should recover capital. Third, the book value will be reasonable close to the market value at any time. Number four, the method should be accepted by the Bureau of Internal Revenue or BIR. What depreciation method should be used? It is worth mentioning what the National Internal Revenue Code says about depreciation, specifically under Section 29F. 1. The general rule, there shall be allowed as a depreciation deduction a reasonable allowance for the exhaustion, wear and tear, including reasonable allowance for obsolescence of property used in the trade or business. Second, use of certain methods and rates. The term reasonable allowance as used in the preceding paragraph shall include, but not limited to, an allowance computed in accordance with the regulations prescribed by the Secretary of Finance under any of the following methods. The letter A, straight line method. Letter B, declining balance method using a rate not exceeding twice the rate which would have been used had the annual allowance been computed under the method described in paragraph F number 1. Letter C, the sum of the years, digits method, and letter D, any other methods, the sinking fund method, which may be prescribed by the Secretary of Finance upon recommendation of the Commissioner of Internal Revenue. Note, taxpayers may enter into an agreement in writing specifically dealing with the useful life and rate of depreciation of any property. The rate so agreed upon shall be binding. The sinking fund formula. So what is the definition? This method assumes that a sinking fund is established in which funds will accumulate for replacement. The total depreciation that has taken place up to any given time is assumed to be equal to the accumulated amount in the sinking fund at that time. So for this topic, we will be using the sinking fund formula, which will cover at a later part of our discussion. So the basic methods or patterns for making economy study, the rate of return method, or sometimes it is abbreviated as ROR. Second, the payback period, it is abbreviated as double P. Third, the annual words method, it is abbreviated as AWM. Number four, the present worth method, abbreviated as PWM. And number five is the future words method, abbreviated as FWM. Now, let us tackle what is rate of return method. It is defined as a measure of the effectiveness of an investment of capital. It is a financial efficiency when this method is used. It is necessary to decide whether the computed rate of return is sufficient to justify the investment. The advantage of this method is that it is easily understood by the management and the investor. The applications of the rate of return method is controlled by the following conditions: a single investment of capital at the beginning of the first year of the project life, and identical revenue and cost data for each year. So the capital invested is the total amount of capital investment required to finance the project, whether equity or borrow. Second, the annual words method, or abbreviated as AWM. This method interests on the original investment, sometimes called minimum required profit. It is included as a cost if the excess of annual cash inflows over annual cash outflows is not less than zero. The proposal is justified or valid. This method is covered by the same limitation as the rate of return pattern: a single initial investment of capital and uniform revenue and cost throughout the life of the investment. The present worth method, abbreviated as PWM. This pattern of economic studies is based on the concept of present worth. If the present worth of the net cash flows is equal to or greater than zero, the project is justified economically. The present worth method is flexible and can be used for any type of economic study. It is used extensively in making economy studies in the public works field, where long-lived structures are involved. The futures worth method, abbreviated as FWM. The futures worth method for economy studies is exactly comparable to the present worth method, except that all cash inflows and outflows are compounded forward to a reference point in time called the future. If the future worth of the net cash flows is equal to or greater than zero, then the project is justified economically. The payback period, or we can also call this one as payout, or abbreviated as double P. The payback period is commonly defined as the length of time required to recover the first cost of an investment from the net cash flow produced by that investment for an interest rate of zero. So let us go over some important formulas that we need to become acquainted with. So letter A, small letter D, the annual depreciation cost using the sinking fund method or formula, where small letter D is equivalent to, so the abbreviation for CO is the original cost, less the CL is the salvage value, and I is the representation of interest. Then divide it by 1 plus I raised over L, or the number of years of the projected economic life of the investment, less 1. While for the capital letter D, this is the accumulated depreciation up to the number of years using the sinking fund method once again. So therefore, capital letter D and small letter n is equivalent to the depreciation, meaning what you have computed here, just input it here, then multiply it times 1 plus the interest raised to n minus 1, then divide it by the interest. Now, Cn is the book value up to the number of years, which is represented as letter n using the sinking fund method. So Cn therefore is equivalent to the original cost less the depreciated accumulated depreciation. Then here, what are these abbreviation used? Capital letter D and small letter n is the depreciation up to the number of years. Small letter d is the annual depreciated cost, and CO is the original cost. CL, the salvage value, or we can also call this one as the scrap value, or it is also equated as the junk value. Cn, therefore, is the book value, sometimes called as depreciated value. So let us go over how we can actually apply this on a simple project. Let us presume that there is a businessman who is considering building a 25 units apartment in a place near a very progressive commercial center. So he felt that because of the location of the apartment, it will be occupied 90% at all times. So he desires a rate of return of 20%. He will pay his employees and including himself for 385,000 per year. Now given we have the cost of the lot or land is 5 million. So this is the original cost of the lot. Then the total cost of the building, which he built, amounted to 7 million, or this is known to be the original cost. So the study period, 20 years, so presume to be the economic life of the building is still valid up to the next 20 years. So the cost of the land, or once that it reaches 20 years, is projected to be 20 million. So this is abbreviated as CL. Take note, lot does not uh, depreciate, but gradually it increases, or it is appraised on a longer duration. While for the cost of the building after 20 years, it is projected that it is 2 million. So this is also abbreviated as CL. Take note, the building value depreciates or deteriorates in a tantamount year once that it has already reached certain period, like for example 20 years. Now, what is the rent per unit per month? It is projected that it costs 12,000 monthly. This is the rental income, and upkeep per unit per year. So it is presumed that it is 50,000 per unit. This is annually. While for the property taxes or real estate tax, we have 1% of the investment. So take note, their investment are the total cost of their property, which is the land and the building. We need also to consider here the insurance. So take note, we need to insure also the building. So for the insurance, we have 0.50% of the investment, meaning what is actually being insured here is just the building itself. Now, what is this? Is the proposal valid? So meaning, is this a good investment on the part of the investor? What is your recommendation as the architect? So number one, you are required to solve for the land investment using the sinking fund formula in appraising the lot. Number two, you need to solve the annual depreciation cost, the small letter D of the building, using the sinking fund method or formula. Number three, solve for the accumulated depreciation or capital letter D value of the building up to 20 years, or N is the number of years. And number four, solve for the book value of the building. Number five, you are required to solve the rate of return. Number six, you are required to solve for the annual worth method. Number seven, you are required to solve for the payback period. Number eight, you are required to solve the present worth method. Number nine, you are required to solve for the futures worth method. So here is the solution. We were able to come up with that 20 million. So the amount of investment, the land after 20 years. So here, the land value does not depreciate, but increases each year. So this is now what called the appraisal. So land after 20 years. So we have presumed that the interest is 20% times the original cost of the lot or land. Then multiply it by the number of years. So 20% times 5 million times 20 years is equivalent to 20 million. Number 2, you are required to solve for the annual depreciation cost. So this is annually, it is abbreviated as small letter d, up to n, or number of years. So I am actually referring to the structure or the building alone. So d, therefore, is equivalent to the original cost of the building less the projected span of the building after 20 years times the interest, then divided by 1 plus the interest raised to L minus 1. So take note that the worth of the building, the original cost is 7 million, less the projected cost after 20 years is 2 million, times the interest is 20%, then divided by 1 plus the percentage is 20 raised to 20 years minus 1. So the annual depreciation therefore is 26,782.65. So we need to solve for the accumulated depreciation, which is actually expressed in capital letter D up to n, or number of years. So therefore, capital letter D n equals to, we need to input here the annual depreciation times 1 plus the interest raised over number of years minus 1, then divided by the interest. So that's what we have computed a while ago. Just input it here, then just input the percentage, which is actually 20%, and n is the economic life of the building is projected to be 20 years. So the accumulated depreciation therefore is 5 million. So that is why here we have highlighted it. The accumulated value of the depreciated cost of the building is 5 million after 20 years. Now we need to solve for the book value, which is actually abbreviated as capital letter C and small letter n up to the number of years. The book value of, or the depreciated value of the building for the next 20 years is therefore capital letter C and small letter n is equivalent to the original cost less the accumulated depreciated cost of the building. So the original cost of the building is 7 million less the accumulated depreciation, which is actually 5 million, as what we have solved a while ago. That's why we just input here 5 million. So therefore, CN, or the book value, is already 2 million. So take note, book value is also called depreciated value. So this is the value of the building for the next 20 years. It is just worth 2 million already. Now, let us go over the first question there is to solve also the rate of return. So here, we need to add the cost of investment So meaning land is 5 million plus the building 7 million. Therefore, we have 12 million, which is considered to be the original cost. So here, take note that the owner need to invest both. He need to acquire or probably rent the lot. Then next is he need to erect or build the structure intended for his or her business. Now, second is we need to solve the total investment in 20 years. So 20 years is the projected economic life of the building, amount of investment in 20 years. So take note, cost of the land is 20 million, then cost of the building is 2 million. Therefore, the amount of investment in 20 years is equivalent to 22 million. Now, solve for the income in terms of the room rentals. Now, the total income in rent is equivalent to 12,000 per month. Then multiply it, that in 1 year there are 12 months. And take note that it has 25 units. So it is also projected that all year round the unit will be occupied 90%. So therefore, the total income in rent is equivalent to 3,240,000. This is the annual income. Now, you are required to solve for the total annual depreciation of their properties. So we can actually devise a way how to use this formula. So take note that the interest is projected that it is 20%, and now the original cost of the property is 12 million. So how did we acquire 12 million? So take note that the original cost of the lot is 5 million plus the building is 7 million. Therefore, it is 12 million less the cost of your properties in 20 years time. So the projected cost of the land is 20 million. Then the depreciated value of the building is 2 million. So therefore, we have 22 million. Then divide it by 1 plus 0.20 raised over 20 years minus 1. So therefore, the depreciation, annual depreciation of the investment is negative 53,565.30. Now, you are required to solve for the upkeep or maintenance. So the upkeep, we have 50,000, which is the maintenance of the unit per year times the 25 units. So the upkeep or the maintenance cost is 1,250,000. Now the property tax, we have the total cost of the land and building times 1%. So therefore, the original cost of the investment is 12 million times 1% is equivalent to 120,000. While for the insurance, it covers both fire and earthquake. The building is the only concern that is actually being insured. So therefore, insurance, the total building cost is 7 million times 0.50%. The insurance is 35,000 annually. So this is being paid annually. So this is also considered as the cost on the part of the businessman or the investor. Now the total salary of the employee. This includes the building owner. We have a lump sum. So they have 385,000, which is the annual salary of both employee and the owner. And therefore, we need to add the total annual cost. So here, the total annual cost therefore is the depreciation plus the upkeep and the taxes. This includes the insurance and so as the salaries. We were able to sum it up. Now it is equivalent to 1,736,434.69 pesos. Now we need to consider here also the how much is the total net annual profit of the investment. So therefore, we're going to solve for it. The formula for it is the total net annual profit. This one has to something to do with the total annual income less the total annual cost. So the total annual income is 3,240,000 less the total annual cost, which is 1,736,434.69 pesos. So we have a total net annual profit which amounts to 1,503,565.30 pesos. So therefore, the expected rate of return is to be determined using this formula. Rate of return equals to the net annual profit divided by the original cost of the investment, then multiply it by 100%, which is equivalent to 1,503,565.30 pesos. Divide by 12 million, then multiply it by 100%. So therefore, rate of return is 12.53%. So this is our solution. So the recommendation here, you as the architect will recommend that the owner desires a rate of return which is actually 20%, but the final output of the pre-feasibility study, the owner should not invest, or because of course we do not want to lose this project, there's a need to come up with how to increase the net annual income of the apartment. That way, the potential return of investment becomes feasible or viable. So think of a way or devise a way how we can actually increase the income generating capacity of the apartment. Now, let us discuss the annual worth method. AWM, annual cash inflow, therefore, is equivalent to the number one. We need to determine here the rental income. So here we have after the cost of the rent. So this is determined as the income generating revenue of the apartment is through rental income, which is actually 12,000 monthly. Then you need to determine the number of units, which is actually 25 units. Then in 1 year, there are 12 months. So take note, the all year round, this 25 units is fully occupied, or it was presumed that it is 90% occupied at all times. So the rental income, therefore, you were able to come up with 1,620,000. This is the annual income of the apartment. Now, we could also diverse away on how we can even generate the, let us presume that the scenario here, the lot or the land is also being rented by the investor. So cost of the land in 20 years, it is projected to be 20 million less the original cost. It is less 5 million. Then we would like to have an interest which is 20%. Then divided by 1 plus 0.20 raised to number of years is 20 minus 1. So income on land therefore is 80,347.96 pesos. So this is the annual income of the lot. So therefore, we need to add up the total annual revenue. So there is rental income, which is actually equivalent to 3,240,000, and then you need to add the income on land, which is 80,347.96 pesos. So therefore, the total annual revenue is 3,320,347.96 pesos. This is the total cash inflow. Now, we need to determine here what is the total annual cash outflow. So take note here, we have the depreciation or annual depreciation using the sinking fund formula. So the interpretation of this formula is you have a capital invested, which is actually the building, less the cost of the building in 20 years time, times the interest. Then you need to divide it by 1 plus the interest raised over L, which is expressed as the economic life of the building less 1. So here we have the depreciated value of the building. So therefore, it is worth 7 million, which is considered to be the original cost of the structure, less 2 million, which is the depreciated value or book value of the building after 20 years, which is actually 2 million. Then divided by 20%. Then after which you need to divide it by the ratio 1 plus 0.20% raise over 20 years minus 1. So we were able to derive the annual depreciation cost, which is actually negative 26,782.65 pesos. So this is already your annual depreciated cost of the building. Now for the upkeep per unit per year, this includes the utility services, the water service, electric, and communications. Now, the upkeep, to maintain the units, we have 25 units, so there's an allocated budget which is actually worth 5 million for the different units. So all in all, the upkeep amounted to 1,250,000. So this is the annual operations and maintenance costs. The property taxes, this is equivalent to the cost of the land and the cost of the building, then multiply it by 1%. So therefore, the cost of the land is 5 million plus the cost of the building is 7 million times 1%. The property taxes therefore amounted to 120,000 pesos. This is the real property tax. Now, for the insurance, it covers both fire and earthquake. Insurance, therefore, we have the cost of the building is 7 million times 0.05%. So, the insurance amounted to 35,000 pesos. Now we have a lump sum for the salary, which is the salary of the employees. This also includes the owner. So we have a corresponding amount of 385,000. So therefore, we need also to consider here if the money, let us presume that the owner or the investor also have borrowed the working capital through an institution. So the interest therefore on capital, this is the sum of money that was borrowed from a financial institution. So the interest on capital, therefore, we need to make it more realistic because there are cases that the owner would borrow money from the institution. Then here is the total amount of the investment. Take note, land cost 5 million plus the building 7 million. So therefore, we have 12 million times 0.20%. So the interest on capital amounted to 2,400,000 pesos. So next is the total cash outflow. We need to add up and sum up all the total cash outflow. Therefore, we have the depreciated value of the building plus the upkeep. Then we need to add the property taxes plus the insurance plus the salaries plus the interest, which resulted to the total amount of 4,216,782 782.65 pesos. Now, the to determine the viability of and to weigh the amount, we need to utilize here the formula, which is actually the net annual worth profit. So it is equivalent, therefore, to the total cash inflow, then subtract it by the total cash outflow. So we have 3,320,347.96 pesos. This is the cash inflow minus the total cash outflow, which amounts to 4,216,782.65 pesos. Therefore, the net annual worth profit amounted to 896,434.69 pesos. The investment is not actually gaining, but we need to increase the cash inflow of the operation of the apartment and reduce also the cash outflow. So this is already the annual worth method.